evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's 7 p.m. and I will call the January 27th, 2020 school board meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Mrs. Jagodinski, would you please call roll call?
Sure. Cheryl Hancock is excused. Tom Cruise is excused. Barb Wetstein.
Here.
Rebecca Reber.
Here.
Anita Jagodzinski, I am here. Lizzie Paff.
Here.
Brian Wolpett.
Here.
And Gary Dunlap.
Here.
Thank you. With 5 of the 7 board members present, I declare a quorum. Approval of the agenda. I note that the agenda has been posted, distributed, and sent to the local media. With this in mind, are there any changes to this agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published.
So moved.
Anita has moved, and anybody second?
Second.
Thank you, Barb. Seconded to approve the agenda as published. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as published, please signify by saying yes.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please signify by saying no. The motion to approve the published agenda has passed. Public participation. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board relative to any matter at this time? I didn't get any yellow cards either. And then we'll move on to district administrator's report.
Sure, welcome. So I just wanted to let people know that our Holmen DECA sent 64 students to the district conference on a couple weekends ago at UW Stout. We have one of the largest DECA groups in that. Actually, when I was at the state convention this last week, a gentleman came up to me and was talking about, how do you have such a great DECA program? Our students just aren't sticking with it like yours, and it just keeps growing. With that, though, we had over half the students were recognized for outstanding achievements. So they brought home 53 contestant medals, had 7 overall finalists, 3 fourth place, 5 third, 5 second, and 3 first place winners. So congratulations to all those participants, and also thanks those advisors for all the great work they're doing with those students. And a lot of them will be moving on to state. So congratulations. And then if you had lunch in our district on Friday, I was sad to miss this day, the winner chicken dinner. Once again, the students had a meal, and many of you might have saw this on the news, a meal with all of our own fresh grown foods within the district was fed to all of our students. So they had chicken, pork chops, sweet corn. They have a beet cake and everything. So it's just really neat to see. And our FFA students dress up and go serve. And we thank all these special guests that came and also served our students. So just a fun event and what we're really known for in Holmen. So thank you to them. All right.
And then, Chris, you have the police liaison report?
Yeah, if you have that included in your documents, if you want, you can take a look and see how busy Officer Hickey has been lately. And with that, he not only is there and helping us with students that need a little extra attention or help, but also working proactively with many of our students through conversations in the hallways, and just also at times talks with students in advisories. So just wanted to note that.
And then recognition and thank you.
Okay, I just keep on rolling. I'd like to take time to recognize our national board certified teachers. Many of these individuals have already been certified and are recertified, which we're happy to say, glad that they continue those efforts, because it's not easy. It's hard work to become a national board certified teacher. But then also we have one of our counselors, Heather Franzini, that just has gotten her national board certification, and just want to congratulate her. So with that, I just wanted to take a moment, and I also made sure that we were able to share this in our visions with their pictures so people can see who these individuals are. But we have Patty Abraham. She's a FIAD teacher with us in the district. Sue Osovich works with our students with autism and so forth. And Anne-Marie Dahl is at our elementary. Tracy Dobakowski, Teresa Eriksmoen, Heather that I mentioned, Robin George, Ann Hagel, Jody Hoscheit, Erica Kohlmeyer Zenke, Michelle Larson, Deborah Lowenhagen, Jamie Meidel, Tim Rainus, Angela Simonson, Jerry Stoffer, Diana Stratton, Don Tauscher, and Lynn Wilson. So it's just a nice, long list of National Board Certified teachers. You don't see a lot of districts that have that many National Board Certified teachers always, so we thank you and congratulate all of them. And then coming up this next week is National School Counseling Week. So take time to thank your counselors for all they do and our student services staff. They work hard day in and day out, and they're very committed to our kids. And they not only do, obviously, the counseling, but they help them explore their careers and help guide them in their future plans. So we thank them for that. And, two more announcements. We're just got lots to be thankful for. Just wanted to note that the Holmen Area Boys and Girls Club coming to our community, and that's coming to be opened coming up in September of this year now, because we're in 2020. And as a school district, we had many of our student groups participate, and we've had many of our staff participate in things such as Jeans Day and do other fundraisers. Raised more than $7,000 and donated that to the Boys and Girls Club. So we just want to thank them for those efforts. And I talked earlier about our DECA kids going to state. Well, we want to thank Ultra because they are helping sponsor the trip to state for their students and giving them a $2,500 donation, which we greatly appreciate that and supporting that activity. Okay, so that will be it for this evening. Thank you.
And now we have a visit with Representative Steve Doyle. Sure.
Yeah, please. Thanks.
No matter which one?
Nah, wherever you're comfortable.
Good.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But I can see a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for the invitation to come and talk with you a bit tonight. Actually, my comments are going to be a little short because there's not a whole lot left to do yet this session before we're done, or so we're told. It's our understanding that we will have somewhere between 2 and 4 more session days yet this session. 2 in February, and we may be done at that point, or we may have 1 or 2 in March. And then we would be finished for the year. So the bills that haven't made it through committee yet, it's not looking good for them, because to get through the entire process, you got to get through the committee hearing, then the committee vote, then one house, and then the same process over in the other house. And we have a lot of bills that have actually passed the assembly that are sitting in the Senate, and we don't know what's going to happen with them. I want to talk about some of them. You've heard talk, and I know that there's all this partisan bickering that's been going on about, is it the Democrats' fault, is it the Republicans' fault? I don't think it really matters. It's probably everybody's fault that there's kind of some dysfunction in Madison. And we have what I guess you could call a record low number of bills that have passed this session, like about a quarter to a third of what we would normally expect at this point. Commonly, in that last 1 or 2 days of the floor period where we're in session, it gets kind of crazy though, and we might have 100 bills on the calendar for a day, and it's just bing, 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 you go right through, and your head's spinning by the time you're done. That commonly is what we see, and may happen again this time. But what we've had so far has been kind of a shortage, but I'm really proud to say that of the bills that have passed, at least have passed the Assembly, my fingerprints are all over a lot of them. And that's because the issues that I've really been interested in are ones that aren't Democratic versus Republican issues. The issues that got me, first of all, involved in the county board and then later in the Assembly are what are issues that drive you. They're kid issues. I mean, I'm interested in things that affect young people. So last session, you heard me talk about, I was the co-chair of the Speaker's Task Force. It was a bipartisan task force on foster care. We had a bunch of things that we got done, bills signed into law and so forth, but there was a lot of unfinished business that we really wanted to get to. And so my co-chair, Pat Snyder, and I got together and we worked on a package of bills that became kind of the nucleus for a package of bills that got passed out of the adoption task force, which is again a bipartisan task force this session that I was a member of. And last week or the week before, it all kind of blurs together at this point, we passed a number of them. I would like to say that they were all bipartisan, but they weren't. But there were some that most definitely were. A bill that I feel very strongly about, given my background also as an attorney who has represented children in child abuse and neglect cases, is a bill that would put Wisconsin in with the majority of other states in our country in terms of allowing and recognizing open adoptions. And the reason that that's been a big issue to me is when I was representing kids in these CHIPS cases, so often we had the parents who, I mean, they just knew that maybe they weren't cut out to be parents. I mean, they weren't bad people. Maybe they didn't have the skills. Maybe they had a drug issue or something. They knew that they really weren't going to be parenting for a long time, whether it's voluntarily or involuntarily. And one of the things that the county always wished that they could offer them was, if you would be willing to voluntarily terminate your parental rights, we could have an arrangement where we have an open adoption where you can have some continued contact with your child or your children. And by that, I don't mean you're going to have weekly visitation. It might be something as simple as, you can send presents or Christmas cards, or we will send you pictures of the child, once a year or something, some fairly small type of thing, but even though other states have had that for years, Wisconsin never did. And so my top priority bill from our adoption task force is to move Wisconsin into that arena where we recognize open adoption. Because a lot of parents that have been in that situation have said, I just want to make sure my kids are going to be okay. I just want to know what is going to happen with them in the future. And if you involuntarily terminate my parental rights, I won't like that, but I'm not going to voluntarily do it if I'm just saying I'm giving up all interest in my child. So I really think this is going to help to facilitate the adoption process rather than the county stepping in and taking away kids from parents, even in a bad situation. It's just not a pleasant thing to do, and I think this is one that's a win-win. The adoptive parents, it's great. They're going to have wonderful child or children. The parents who are giving up their child or children will know that they're going to be able to from a distance see that those kids are okay. So that one has passed the Assembly. It's over in the Senate. I'm hoping that it'll pass quickly there, and the governor's office, I'm crossing my fingers, will sign that bill. We also, as part of that package, had some other bills, one of which was increased access to adoption assistance, especially with what would be considered higher need children. And by higher need, I don't necessarily mean children with disabilities. I sometimes mean kids that are older, where, that cute little, chubby-cheeked baby or toddler is easy to adopt out. That teenager may be a lot tougher, one to accomplish. And so this would facilitate that a little bit. So that's the adoption task force. Then another one that I was active in, in fact I was the vice chair of, was the suicide prevention task force. Again, a bipartisan committee established by the Speaker of the Assembly. The two bills that we passed in our House, we passed several, but two that really relate to you folks, would be, we're providing money for better peer-to-peer counseling and interaction, so that it recognizes that farmers who are in crisis can best talk to farmers, police officers can best talk to police officers, teenagers, middle schoolers can best talk to people their age. And so what we're trying to do is to promote that we will establish a better network where students will be able to have fellow students that they can talk to if they have suicidal thoughts. And that one is just a totally non-controversial bill, and I feel real good about that one getting through. And I believe that one passed the Senate, and the governor will be signing that, and I'm hoping he's going to come to this area to sign it. We've put out that invitation to him. The other one was a suggestion that, you know, we had never thought of, but that's why we do these task forces where you go around the state and you bring in the people who are on the front lines and know this stuff. So we had actually a couple educators come to us and say, you know, something that would really be simple to do would be to say, on the student IDs, why don't you put the suicide prevention hotline, the phone number for that? It's like, oh, I mean, next time you print them, you just add that on. It's not like you have to go and issue a new set of IDs, but this would be at, you know, the K-12 level and also at the post-secondary level. Something very simple that could make a big difference. And with regard to that hotline, we're looking to put more money into that so that whenever you call the hotline, you're talking to somebody from Wisconsin. I mean, a well-meaning person from New York who sounds like a New Yorker isn't going to convince me of anything. I mean, I want to talk to somebody that I feel I can relate to. And so I feel really good about what we've done in that area. Another bill that really has nothing to do with you, but I'm very proud of because it was just such a good bill, the duty death bill. So right now, if you are a spouse of a law enforcement officer who, or previously I should say, who you were the spouse of a law enforcement officer who was killed in the line of duty, shortly after that happened, you would probably get a nice letter from the mayor or whomever thanking you for your spouse's service. And a few days after that, you would get a letter from the HR person saying, by the way, your health insurance ends next week. And so we had this public hearing where these spouses, in this case it was all wives of police officers, came in and said, you couldn't have told me anything worse. You know, I have my spouse gone, and now I have no health insurance for my children. You know, what am I to do? And so our members of this legislature finally passed a bill that we've been talking about for 10 years. And I don't understand why it had been controversial before. It doesn't even cost particularly the local governments, because if you are a local government and you pay those premiums now, the state will reimburse you the next time around in shared revenue. So it is intended to be a hold harmless. I felt so good that day when we were in the governor's conference room and the governor was signing it, and you had a lot of law enforcement officers, but you had those women who had come to testify at our hearing about that. They were there, and I mean, it felt good to do something that it wasn't a Democratic or Republican bill. It was a bill that was, it was a human bill. So I felt good about that. So what do we have coming up? Good news from last week. We have this nice budget surplus. Don't start spending the money yet because that will be like a little mini budget process where the governor is going to bring in some suggestions and the legislature will have its suggestions, and they'll fight it out and posture and point fingers and everything else, and eventually we'll come up with something. So what is that something going to be? And I think a couple things are very likely. One is like near certain, and that is a tax cut. I mean, this is an election year. Politicians like to do tax cuts. So you have the Democrats who will have their idea of a tax cut, and you'll have the Republicans that have their idea of a tax cut. And we'll see what it comes out to be, but I'm guessing there will be a tax cut as part of it. Also, tomorrow, strictly speaking, at 1 o'clock, we are in special session on farm assistance. And the governor last week at the State of the State session called the special session for next week. The Republicans have said, well, we're not going to be there. We have our own ideas of what to do for farm assistance, and we're going to do it, in our own process. And that's fine. That's fine. But I would expect that with this surplus, especially since the speaker, I think, was this morning on the radio saying the governor's bills didn't really do much in terms of enough funding to accomplish what he wanted, and so I mean, this would seem like kind of an indication that we're going to see something come out where maybe both sides can say, oh, we can do this, and it won't break the bank. But speaking of breaking the bank, that's the only concern I have at this point. We have this surplus, but we also are, and I wouldn't call it in the middle, probably at the end of, the longest period of economic growth in modern history in our country. it's going to come to an end at some point. What I'm concerned about is, if we spend it all or we give it all back in the way of tax cut this year, and then frequently what we see is, when does that crash hit? After an election. So whoever is elected president this fall, probably next year is going to be looking at people having to tighten their belt. If you've given all the money away, either spent it on new programs or in tax cut, and then you go to the taxpayers next year and say, by the way, we now have a shortfall, we need to raise your taxes to make ends meet, you're asking people at the worst possible time when they can least afford to do it. So I'm a big advocate. I guess I'm a Ron Kind Democrat in that regard. I'm tight with money. I don't want to see us just blow it in any respect. So I'd like to, statutorily, half of that surplus has to go into the rainy day fund. I'm not sure that that we should stop at that point. I think that it might be good to, pretend not just it's a rainy day, but it's like a flood. Just so that we're ready for that. I'm hearing people talk about roads. I'm hearing people talk about broadband. Heard a couple lone voices in the wilderness talk about education. I'd like to tell you that was at the top of the list. I'm still waiting for a little bit more people to be saying, hey, we started with the comeback of funding our schools, but we need to continue that. I'll be in Madison tomorrow. And hopefully I'll hear some more of that. But that one surprisingly hasn't been as loud as the roads I've been getting contact from constituents on even. We don't know what's going to happen. There will be something that happens probably within the next 30 to 60 days in terms of having an idea what that's going to be. I can't really make any specific predictions at this point. So that is my report for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I just have one question. Well, first of all, thanks for coming tonight.
Absolutely.
I know in the fall that Representative Felskowski was circulating a bill to change the retirement age for or maybe it was for all state employees, or if it was just for educators, from 55, 56 to 59 and a half. And then also to ensure that if retired educators went back into the workforce, they wouldn't lose their pension. Where is that at right now?
I don't see that going anywhere. That got a lot of attention at that time. I don't think it really got a lot of traction. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm a member of the minority party. Sometimes we find out stuff that we weren't expecting, shortly before we're in session talking about it. But I've not seen a lot of movement on that. And that one would be a surefire veto from the governor, and that veto would not be overridden. So I don't see that one happening this year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I grew up with her, so I kind of, even though I'm not in Tomahawk, she's the rep up there. And
yeah, I mean,
keep an eye
she's
on
a member
her.
of the Joint Finance Committee, so she's got some extra clout. But that's just one that I think members of both parties say it's a bridge too far.
Okay.
So I don't see that one happening.
And as somebody who's going to retire in May, it concerned me a little bit, so, okay, thank you.
Understood.
Anybody else have any questions? Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you, and I have the report that came from the Legislative Fiscal Bureau last week talking about the surplus, and I'm going to give a copy of it to the only person that really would care to read that, and that is your district administrator,
ooh.
because it's pretty boring fiscal stuff. I know those kind of people
Thank
like
you.
that stuff.
Julie might
I'll
fight her
share.
for it.
Yeah,
I'll
she
share.
knows to share. But thank you for the invitation. I always enjoy coming here.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thanks for presenting it, Joy.
And now, reports and discussions. Let me put my glasses back on here. Kim Edwards on the field experience contract from the University of Wisconsin. And this will be on the consent agenda on February 10th.
Let's see.
Oh, University of Wisconsin Stout, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Good evening. I have another field experience contract, but before you tonight, this one is with UW Stout. They're looking to renew the contract. We have them to place clinical students and student teachers. If approved, this would go into effect as soon as we have our signatures gathered, and then would go through the school year of 2022. It reads pretty much like all of our other UW ones, except this one is not self-renewing. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then Melissa on middle school associate principal / activities director. And it looks like this one's on the consent agenda for tonight.
Is this up here or no? Oh, yeah, it's in the folder that's up. There it is. Sorry. All right. So tonight we're presenting a recommendation for a new middle school associate principal with activities director responsibilities. This recommendation comes from forward tonight after a several-year trend as we look at our workforce focus area and specific to the pupil to staffing measures under that workforce measure. We have found a higher than average pupil to administrator ratio. As we dig down deeper, it's specific to the middle school. So we've done some research of our peer districts as well as other local districts in the area and found that that is a valid statement that we are administratively understaffed specific to our middle school. So as you can see in the issue paper, the benefits to adding this position at the middle school is going to allow that administration there to be better prepared to address increased needs of students, spending time necessary on safety and investigations while not compromising their other responsibilities. As in the title states, this position will have oversight of the middle school activities program. So they'll have that direct correlation with those students to help be more proactive on that disciplinary level. They'll be present at those events. They'll be able to work directly with those students that they see on a daily basis as well. Extra supervision during those busy times of day with over 900 kids in the building. An extra set of hands will always come in handy. Also providing additional support to staff on an administrative level. So the recommendation for this position is a school year 215-day contract paid through salary and benefits, district salary and benefits, with a salary range of $80,000 to $83,000. We are seeking recommendation this evening. The position is posted with a 4-week window to seek applicants. So, any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda items. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background materials on each item, or has discussed it at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it will be pulled out for the consent agenda and will be voted on separately. Does anybody need anything removed? No? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved.
Anita has moved. Anybody second?
Second.
Thanks, Barb. Anita has moved and Barb has seconded the motion to approve the agenda items. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda items, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying no. Motion passes.
I just have a couple announcements. We have a few more retirements in that I wanted to recognize this evening. Wendy Grace, she is a teacher at Sand Lake Elementary. She's been with us for 5 years. She definitely will dearly be missed in that. Pam Siegert, she works at our high school in our special education program. 31 years of service in that. So, and then Karen Coleman, teacher, also longtime coach in our school district, 35 years. So lots of great experience that will definitely be missed, and we just thank them for all they've done for our students in the school district of Holmen. So thank you.
Thank you. Now on to board member reports and discussion. First, I will call upon board members in the order of the roll call. I would ask you to present any comments or committee reports you have. Barb?
We had our Student and Learning Committee meeting last week, and you can see we got a lot done, so that was good. So got through a lot of different policies and then started looking ahead to other policies that we need to target. Also, I had the opportunity to go to the school board convention, so thank you to the district for that opportunity. Attended a lot of informative sessions on things like board governance, efficiency that way, equity, a lot on equity, and then some general sessions too with just ideas on how to increase engagement, especially in the middle school, high school levels, and just different, newer methods of teaching and things like that. So just some really great application. Then had the opportunity already to talk to Dr. Mueller about some of the things I learned, and so just a really great opportunity. And then also was the delegate for the delegate assembly, and that was very informative as well. Most of the resolutions that had been put out were passed. Unfortunately, there was a theme, and all the ones that didn't pass dealt with equity. And so to the public, I would encourage some of our families of color to step forward and run for positions when they're open. And for those of us in those positions who are white, to really think about how our decisions affect others. Because in the room I was in, the people of color were definitely the minority, and they did not feel validated in that way. And so that was a little disappointing. So the other resolutions that did pass all were very pro-students, and I think, were very good as well, though. So.
Thank you, Barb. It's my turn. I just have to put a plug out for the Boys and Girls Club. There's challenges going out on Facebook based on the year that you graduated from high school. So that I haven't seen my class come through, but a lot, like for example, class of 1987 has been challenging each other to raise funds for the Boys and Girls Club. I've seen a lot of years come out. So that's kind of fun to see that they're still continuing to raise money, and even by the classes that have graduated from Holmen. So, and then also Mrs. Coleman, I want to wish her good luck in her retirement. So she was one of my gym teachers back in the day. So I wish her the best of luck too. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I was her first detention. It was. So, a lesson. So, and Anita.
Yep. Oh, I thought you were going to
I'm
bring something
sorry.
up. Okay. All right. So we had no Personnel and Governance Committee meeting this month, so there's nothing to report on that. I went to the school board convention last week with Barb and Cheryl and Chris, and a lot of the sessions that Barb described, I attended also. We went to the couple of the general sessions together and learned about different ways of addressing different ways that kids learn. And it was interesting, the one general session speaker we listened to talked about, like, kids are not thinking the same way we are. We're so used to sitting and listening and being more passive in our learning. And we need to get up to speed with hands-on and letting kids be involved in their learning and active, instead of expecting them to sit in a chair 8 hours a day and take notes and listen. And I thought it was a little ironic, though, that we were there for 3 days sitting in chairs listening to speakers as they're telling us that. But yeah, it was really something to think about. I would love to hear that man speak again and get even more out of his next presentation. I don't know if he'll ever be in our area. Maybe we could get him sometime, but he was very good. I also went to the legislative update and learned about pretty much the same things that Representative Doyle talked about tonight. I also went to a session on bullying. I went to a session on equity, and I went to another session that had another session on equity that had a Native American, a Hispanic fellow, and an African American, and just listening to their point of view and things that are happening in their communities and with the students in their schools. It really was eye-opening, and I had also heard that the WASB resolutions were not really favorable toward equity this year, which is really, really disappointing. So Barb had some good points to get more people of color, more minorities involved, so that they're fairly represented and it's more equitable all around. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Lizzie?
I don't have too much to say tonight, but the high school is definitely extremely busy this time of year with the new semester starting, and a lot of seniors are starting to get acceptance letters, so it's just a very exciting time of year. But one thing that I really wanted to comment on was what Dr. Mueller talked about earlier, but just the quality of our lunches throughout the whole district. and especially at the high school since I eat lunch every day there. But I was listening to Wisconsin Public Radio with my dad in the car this past weekend, and there was a short segment about the lunches at Holmen, and some classmates I heard speaking just about the quality of the food and how it is grown by fellow classmates, which is just amazing. So there's just so much pride in Holmen High School, not only with our sports teams and with our academics, but also in the lunch line, which is just amazing because having your peers serve you food that they worked so hard to grow is just a really, really cool experience. And I didn't recognize that wasn't the norm. I've always had such amazing food going to school every single day. And talking with friends from other school districts and different areas around the country and state. I really am so lucky to have the lunches every day that I do, especially because school can be so stressful sometimes. So it's nice to sit down with your friends and have a really good meal each day. So, yeah.
Thank you, Lizzie. Brian?
I'd like to congratulate the staff members who achieved their national board certificate, especially for those who are renewing and continuing on. It's an extremely rigorous project, and at the same time, professional development. It is extremely rewarding, and really, it's an added benefit to our district. So congratulations to them. This week, I saw on social media an exterior view of the Boys and Girls Club, and I think we are in for a gem in this community, and everything that we're doing as a district to kind of bring the community together with the school district, it's going to be awesome.
Thank you, Brian. And Gary?
We did have a financial committee meeting tonight, and it was fun-filled as usual. I too am excited about the Girls and Boys Club and what's going on there. They're going to start some construction here in next week or so. I go over there and try to peek in the windows and stuff whenever I can, trying to get something going over there. I wish I could invite Lizzie back to 1965 and have some of our lunches. Loaf and peanut butter sandwiches. And you'd really appreciate what you got now. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Could I add one more thing, Rebecca? I just wanted to mention, when you were talking about the lunches at the convention, there in the expo hall, there are always vendors, and there's always a few vendors who are pushing privatizing school lunches. And I almost feel sorry for them, because what they're kind of cooking up and trying to serve you samples of, we started talking about, like, have you heard of Holmen? And we kind of shamed them a little. It's fun because Holmen I mean, to have a chef standing there saying, well, you know, we can come in and we can cook these meals for you, and it's so much cheaper, and they have no idea what Holmen is like. So I'm very proud too. So thanks for mentioning that, Lizzie.
Thanks, Anita. And now we go into closed session. So do I adjourn this one first?
Nope, you just can read.
So be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby moves to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility. In this case, the district administers evaluation. Roll call. Anita, would you do that, please?
Cheryl Hancock,